Hi there, I'm Nicole with Piatto Recipes. Today we'll be making a festive Italian dessert called Zuppa Inglese. Let's get started. Let's start with the sponge cake. To make Zuppa Inglese, we simply need 2 to 3 layers of sponge cake. You can either bake a tall sponge cake and cut it into 3 layers while that cake is cold, or bake the cake into a large jelly roll pan and then cut it into layers. To make the sponge cake for Zuppa Inglese, we add 6 whole cold eggs to a large bowl. To that, we add granulated sugar and the zest from 1 lemon. The biggest mistake people make when whipping eggs is whipping eggs that aren't warm enough. So here we are just using cold eggs and simply adding 3 tablespoons of hot water right after we start whipping the eggs. Now I'm whipping the eggs at medium speed and I'm setting the timer for 15 minutes. We are looking for super pale, fluffy eggs. When we flick our eggs, they should hold their shape and sit on top of the rest of the egg mixture. And now we have the right consistency. While the eggs are whipping, I'm sifting together cornstarch and flour. Time to fold in the flour. Sift about a tablespoon of the flour mixture at a time into the eggs. Never sift in too much flour at once. The result will be a clumpy, uneven batter. If the whipped eggs start to sink under the weight of the flour, you are adding too much. When folding in the flour, I always give it a couple of shallow stirs and then begin to fold the flour in gently with a bottom to top motion, like this. When all of the flour has been folded into the eggs, we move on to spreading the batter into the pan. Here I'm using a 15 by 12 inch or a 40 centimeter by 30 centimeter pan lined with parchment paper. I'm baking the sponge cake in a preheated 350 degree static oven for 15 minutes. That's 180 degrees Celsius. When your cake is finished baking, turn off the oven and leave the cake in the oven for 5 to 10 minutes to cool down slowly, leaving the door cracked if possible. This lets the cake cool slowly to minimize deflation. The pan de spagna originated during the Renaissance. In that recipe, only egg was used for leavening, just as we are doing in this recipe. If you're okay with a rectangular Zuppa Inglese, it's enough to make simply 1 sheet cake, and then cut it into layers. Here we wanted to make a square cake for a special occasion, and so we went ahead and made a second sponge cake in order to cut 3 square layers. So the only thing left is to whip up a homemade pastry cream. Here we'll be making both a chocolate and a vanilla. Start by shaving dark or semi-sweet chocolate. Then put it in a large bowl and set it aside. Start by putting a large bowl into the freezer about an hour before starting the custard. We'll need it to cool the finished custard. To make the pastry cream, start by zesting 1 whole lemon and setting it aside. To a medium saucepan, I'm adding 2 cups, or about 500 milliliters of milk, and the seeds and pieces from 1 vanilla bean. I'm warming the milk until it is vigorously simmering but not boiling. Then in a large bowl, combine the sugar, cornstarch, flour, and 10 egg yolks. Always separate the eggs cold for a clean separation. And with the whites, you can make a meringue or even an angel food cake. Many people don't know it, but previously frozen egg whites whip wonderfully. While the milk is warming, I'm simply whisking the egg mixture to a smooth, thick paste. When the milk is hot, remove the vanilla bean pieces, then add all of the hot milk a little at a time to the eggs, whisking vigorously. This is called tempering the eggs. It means that we're simply warming the eggs to the temperature of the milk. At this point, I always strain the liquid as I'm pouring it back into the saucepan. This removes any clumps that might remain after the mixing. After all, we want the silkiest custard possible. And now I add the lemon zest. Cook the custard over medium heat, whisking continuously. When the custard is thick and creamy, remove it from the heat. For this recipe, we'll be adding the warm, finished custard to 2 different bowls, splitting the custard evenly between the bowls. Add 1/2 of the custard to the bowl with the shaved chocolate, and immediately whisk the custard in with that shaved chocolate until it's distributed evenly and smooth and creamy. And as for the rest of the custard, it's time to transfer it to the icy cold bowl and continue whisking. This time we're whisking to draw up the temperature of the custard. This will produce the creamiest custard possible. As always, I've left the entire list of ingredients in the video description, along with links to any special equipment that I've used today. Lay the plastic wrap directly on top of the custard. Notice that I'm not just covering the whole bowl with plastic wrap, but rather laying the plastic wrap directly on top of the custard. This is to prevent any air between the custard and the plastic wrap from developing a skin on top of the custard. Let the custard cool for about 15 minutes and then pop it in the refrigerator to cool completely. And now it's time to assemble our Zuppa Inglese. Here I have 3 layers of cold sponge cake and vanilla and chocolate custard. We also need some kind of sweet red liquid to soak the sponge cake in. You can either use the traditional Alchermes liquor, which is flavored with cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and vanilla. Liquor alternatives include cherry liquor, sweet marsala wine, or even rum, all with a little bit of red food coloring added in to boost up the festive red. And now it's time to inzuppare, or soak, the sponge cake. Here I have 300 milliliters of Alchermes, and I'm going to use 100 milliliters at a time to soak 1 layer of sponge cake, and then we'll see how it goes if we need more. To make this dessert non-alcoholic, try cherry juice or a simple syrup with red food coloring. Lay 1 slice of soaked cake onto the serving tray. Fill a pastry bag with all of the chocolate custard and add that custard on top of the first layer of cake. Then we add the second sponge cake layer. And top that with all of the vanilla custard. And finally, our last sponge cake layer. You can top your Zuppa Inglese in a couple of different ways. You could use fresh whipped cream or Italian meringue, as we're doing today. And now it's time to look inside and have a little taste of our beautiful Zuppa Inglese. E buon appetito!